A cop, used to having the upper hand in every situation, crosses the line with a black woman in a courtroom. He's arrogant, assuming she's just another person who'll back down. But what he doesn't know is that this woman isn't who he thinks she is. What if she's not just any ordinary person? What if she's the FBI chief? The moment he pushes her too far, everything changes, and he quickly realizes he's made a huge mistake. Before we continue, let us know, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below, and let's dive right into it. Leah isn't just any woman. She's the chief of the FBI, a powerhouse in law enforcement. Rising through the ranks with unmatched intelligence and determination, Leah has had to fight harder than most to be where she is. She's no stranger to being underestimated, especially because of her race and gender, but that's never stopped her. She's calm, composed, and incredibly confident. When she walks into a room, people feel the weight of her authority. And when she steps into the courtroom, the cop standing before her has no idea who he's dealing with. Then there's the cop. He's been around for years and thinks he knows how the system works. He's seen countless cases and never once felt threatened by anyone, especially not by a black woman. To him, Leah is just another face in the crowd, someone he can push around and intimidate. He's used to having control, and he assumes this case will be no different. What he doesn't realize is that by crossing the line with Leah, he's about to make a mistake that will turn everything upside down. The courtroom feels tense, but it seems like any other case at first. The judge presides, the cop stands confident, and Leah remains silent, watching. But as the cop grows more aggressive, something begins to shift. The tension rises. The audience, still unaware of Leah's true identity, starts to sense something big is about to unfold. Leah wasn't new to being underestimated. As the chief of the FBI, she had faced far worse situations, but this time, in a courtroom, things were different. The cop before her assumed this would be just another quick and easy case. To him, she was just another person, someone he could dismiss and control with his badge. But Leah wasn't going to make it that simple. The cop had been in law enforcement for years, and his confidence was something that came with the territory. He believed his experience gave him the right to treat people like they were beneath him. He assumed that just because Leah sat quietly in the courtroom, she was another target for his condescending remarks. But Leah wasn't going to be pushed around. Every time the cop made a rude comment or tried to belittle her, she responded with calm precision, throwing back legal knowledge and facts that made him pause. Her calmness was unlike anything he had ever expected. The more she spoke, the more it became clear. Leah wasn't just there to stand trial, she was there to stand tall. The cop's confidence started to crack. His rude comments became fewer, and his posture shifted from arrogance to uncertainty. Leah's control of the conversation was unshakable. She wasn't shouting or getting upset. She was showing him, with quiet authority, that this wasn't a case he could win simply by bullying someone weaker. She carefully pointed out flaws in the case, citing laws and facts with precision, and the cop could do nothing but watch as the case slipped further from his control. The judge, now taking a keener interest, began to look at the cop as if he was the one in trouble. What was once a case about a small offense had quickly escalated into something much bigger, a reminder that power should never be assumed. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Leah wasn't just dismantling the case against her, she was exposing the flaws in the very system the cop thought he was controlling. His arrogance was being met with knowledge, and his confusion grew with each point she made. Leah, the calm, composed FBI chief, was showing everyone in that room exactly what happens when you cross the wrong person. The tension in the courtroom had been building, and Leah could feel it. What had started as a simple legal proceeding had quickly turned into a battle of wills. The cop, once so confident, now seemed to stumble with every word he spoke. But Leah wasn't backing down. She had spent years proving herself, and now, in this moment, she wasn't about to let him, or anyone, push her around. She had been calm, collected, and precise from the start. But now, she was about to show him just how wrong he was to underestimate her. The cop had been throwing his weight around, trying to intimidate her, assuming that because she was a woman in black, she wouldn't know how to handle herself. But Leah wasn't just any woman. She was the chief of the FBI. She had faced bigger challenges than this before, and this was nothing more than another chance to prove her strength. As the cop continued to try and assert control, Leah simply took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. She knew that if she responded with aggression, she'd give him exactly what he wanted. But Leah was different. She had learned the art of calmness in the face of chaos. Her voice was steady as she broke down the flaws in his argument, piece by piece. She wasn't just a passive player in this case. She was the one driving the narrative. Each word she spoke had weight. The cop's smirk slowly faded as Leah pointed out the legal inconsistencies in his approach. Her mind was sharp, and her arguments were flawless. As she dismantled his case, piece by piece, the courtroom began to shift. The judge, who had once seemed indifferent, was now paying close attention to every word Leah said. Even the cop, who had been so confident just moments ago, began to feel the weight of her words. He realized he was no longer in control. Leah wasn't just a woman being pushed around by a cop. She wasn't just a political figure. She was an expert in law, in justice, and in fighting back. With each rebuttal she made, it was clear to everyone in the room. Leah had outsmarted him. She had taken his aggression and turned it into an opportunity to show who she truly was. The cop had underestimated her, and now he was paying the price. As the judge prepared to deliver a ruling, the cop found himself at a crossroads. He knew he had lost. He had come into this situation thinking he could dominate, thinking he could intimidate and silence Leah. But now it was clear that Leah was the one in control. Her calm, calculated approach had shattered his confidence. She had used his own arrogance against him, and now the room was left waiting for the inevitable. The judge's voice rang out, and the words that followed were exactly what Leah had been waiting for. "The case is dismissed," the judge said, his tone final. It wasn't just a legal victory, it was a message. Leah had shown that no one, not even a cop with years of experience, could get away with crossing the line when someone knew the law better. She had exposed his flaws, and in doing so she had not only won the case, she had sent a clear message to everyone watching. In that moment, Leah felt a deep sense of satisfaction, but not just because she had won. She knew that her victory was bigger than this courtroom. It was about proving that no one, no matter their position or status, should ever be underestimated. She had used the system to her advantage, not just for herself, but for anyone who had ever been made to feel small or insignificant. The cop, once so confident, stood there in shock, realizing that his assumptions had cost him everything. Leah wasn't just the FBI chief, she was a force of nature, and now everyone in that room knew it. Just when the courtroom thought the tension was over, Leah revealed something that no one expected. The judge, who had already dismissed the case and was ready to move on, was left stunned as Leah spoke again. What had started as a routine case had now escalated into something much bigger, something that would change everything. "Your Honor," Leah began, her voice calm but full of authority, "this case isn't just about a minor offense. This is about a system that allows officers to act with impunity." The room fell silent. Everyone in the courtroom could feel the shift. Leah wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was standing up for something far greater than this one case. The cop, who had been smug and dismissive throughout the proceedings, now shifted in his seat, growing visibly uncomfortable. He had assumed this was going to be just another case where he would come out on top, where the woman in front of him would fold under pressure. But Leah wasn't like the others. Her calm demeanor hid a mind sharper than anything he had ever encountered. Leah wasn't about to let him get away with what he had done. With every word she spoke, she tore apart the idea that this was just an isolated incident. She wasn't simply challenging his behavior in this case. She was exposing a pattern of abuse that had gone unnoticed for far too long. She revealed evidence, documents, recordings, testimonies, showing that this wasn't the first time this officer had crossed the line. In fact, it wasn't even the second or third. This cop had a history of using his badge to intimidate and oppress people, targeting minorities and anyone he deemed as lesser. The shock in the courtroom was palpable. The judge, who had initially dismissed this as a small case, now found himself in a position he hadn't anticipated. The room, once calm and routine, was now filled with whispers as the cop tried to defend himself. But Leah was on fire. She wasn't just pointing out his faults, she was laying the groundwork for justice, for accountability, and for real change. The cop, who had once looked so sure of himself, was now stammering, trying to dig himself out of a hole he had no way of escaping. He had never expected to face someone like Leah. She wasn't just a victim. She wasn't just another woman in a courtroom. She was the chief of the FBI, and she knew how to fight. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been wronged. Leah's brilliance wasn't just in her legal knowledge, it was in how she carried herself. She wasn't angry or emotional. She didn't need to be. Every word that came out of her mouth was calculated and precise. She used the law as her weapon, and the cop's arrogance as the target. The longer the case dragged on, the clearer it became that Leah wasn't just winning the argument. She was dismantling the entire system of oppression the cop represented. And then came the twist no one saw coming. The judge, now fully aware of the gravity of what had just been revealed, had no choice but to act. He didn't just dismiss the case in Leah's favor, he called out the officer's behavior publicly. He wasn't just concerned about the fine or the case. He was concerned about what Leah had just exposed. The courtroom went silent as the judge declared that the officer would face a full investigation. Leah had not only won her case, she had ensured that the cop would no longer be able to hide behind his badge. In that moment, Leah didn't just win. She made sure that justice wasn't just a concept. It was a reality that could no longer be ignored. Her victory wasn't just personal. It was a message to anyone who thought they could abuse their power without consequences. The cop, once so confident, now stood completely exposed. Leah had turned the tables on him in a way no one expected. She had shown that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you have the power to stand up for what's right and make sure that everyone is held accountable for their actions. The tension in the courtroom had reached its peak. Leah had not only proven her point, but she had done something far more powerful. She had exposed a truth that was bigger than the case itself. The cop, who thought he could use his badge to control the situation, now stood defeated, his arrogance completely stripped away. What had started as a simple courtroom conflict had turned into a lesson in justice, power, and the importance of standing up against what's wrong. For Leah, this wasn't just a legal win. It was a moment that defined who she was. She wasn't just the chief of the FBI. She was someone who understood that true power comes from knowledge, fairness, and the unwavering ability to do what's right, no matter who stands in your way. The victory wasn't just about her proving herself in the courtroom. It was about changing the narrative, about showing that justice couldn't be bent or twisted by those who thought they were above it. But as she looked around, Leah knew this was just one battle in a much bigger war. The cop might have been taken down today, but the system that allowed his behavior to thrive was still in place. Leah understood that real change didn't happen with just one victory. It took consistent, persistent effort to break down the walls of prejudice and abuse that had been built up over decades. But today, she had done her part. She had shown everyone that no matter how powerful you think you are, the truth always has a way of coming to light. In that moment, Leah reflected on how far she had come, from the challenges she faced growing up, to her rise in the FBI, to the moment she stood in that courtroom, never backing down, always pushing forward. She had been underestimated time and time again, but that only fueled her determination. She knew that every challenge she faced, every obstacle that was put in her path, was just another chance for her to prove that she was not just capable, but unstoppable. This case wasn't about one cop or one mistake. It was about breaking the cycle of injustice that had held too many people back for far too long, and Leah was ready to continue that fight. The judge's ruling wasn't just a victory for Leah. It was a victory for everyone who had ever been silenced, dismissed, or ignored. When the judge finally spoke, his words carried more weight than anyone could have imagined. He didn't just rule in Leah's favor. He acknowledged the deeper issues that her actions had uncovered. He made it clear that the system had to change, and that no one, no matter their status, would be allowed to abuse their power anymore. The cop's fate was sealed. The case wasn't just dismissed. It had opened up a bigger conversation about the importance of accountability in law enforcement, about the need for change, and about standing up when things aren't right. For Leah, this was a reminder that the fight for justice was ongoing, and there was still a lot of work to be done, but she had already taken the first step. And sometimes that's the hardest part. Leah's story wasn't just about her personal victory. It was about how one person could make a difference. It was about how standing up for what's right, even in the face of overwhelming odds, could spark change. Leah's victory proved that when you know the truth, when you have the facts, and when you have the courage to speak out, you can stand up to anyone, even the most powerful people in the room. And that's exactly what Leah had done. In the end, it wasn't just the judge's ruling that mattered. It was the message Leah sent to the world. A message that power wasn't about badges or titles. It was about integrity, strength, and the ability to stand firm in your beliefs. Leah had shown that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you have the power to fight back against injustice and win. Leah's victory wasn't just about winning a case. It was about sending a message. A message that power isn't just in the hands of those who hold badges or titles. It's in the hands of those who stand up, who know their worth, and who believe in justice. Leah took on an arrogant cop who thought he could bully his way through, and she showed him and everyone else in that courtroom that no one is above the law. Her victory wasn't just personal. It was a wake-up call for the system. Leah proved that with knowledge, resilience, and determination, anyone could challenge the status quo, even someone who'd been dismissed because of their race and gender. She didn't just win the case. She broke down the walls of prejudice, and that's what really mattered. But Leah's story isn't just about her. It's about all of us. How many times have we felt overlooked or underestimated? How many times have we been told we couldn't do something because of where we come from? Leah showed us that none of that matters. When you fight for what's right and you stand firm, you can change the game. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated or faced a situation where you had to fight for what's right? Drop a comment below and share your story. Let's start a conversation about standing up and challenging the system. We've all got the power to make a difference, just like Leah did. If you're inspired by this story, like, share, and subscribe for more. There's so much more to come. Don't miss out.